Welcome to the Empathic Shield Masterclass. I'm so grateful for you that you are honoring your sensitivity by joining me today. I am Sarah-Beth Barrett, and I'm a life coach who supports sensitive souls in opting out of hustle culture, in reclaiming peace, and creating a nourishing inner sanctuary to authentically thrive in a noisy world. And a huge part of the work that I do with others revolves around boundary setting, which is what we'll be talking about today. You're in the right place if any of these statements ring true for you. You may often feel overwhelmed by emotions. You find it hard to say no. You feel guilty about putting yourself first. You struggle to figure out your own limits. Or maybe you have trouble speaking up for what you need without feeling that pang of guilt. And so rest assured you are in the right place if any of these or all of these resonate with you. Before we dive in, I wanted to share a piece of my story as an example of what life can look like before and after learning about boundaries. Looking back at 2020. Now, for most of my life up until that point, I had been living without the awareness of what boundaries were and how they could help me thrive as a sensitive soul, particularly ever since becoming a mom, which was 5 years before that. Um, that sense of lack of boundaries really took its toll throughout that time, because if you are a parent or a caregiver, you know that these loved ones hold a piece of your heart. And so my kids did just that. I would do anything for them. And it really came to a breaking point in 2020 when I had an infant and a kindergartner, and we were all shut in because of the early days of COVID. And I felt at the time that I had to suck it up and be all the things to everyone all the time. There was absolutely no limit to my energy, my love, my emotions, what I would give towards others, and as well as energy that I had was not spent on me first and foremost. It was in giving, because we were in this situation where I felt quite privileged. We were safe, we were together, we were healthy, we were whole. And yet, within sitting in that gratitude and in that place of privilege, I found myself burning out because I didn't realize the value of giving myself permission to set limits to how much of my energy and time and love I would share with those who I loved in return. And so I was giving, I was pouring from my cup without pouring back into it. Becoming a parent, my confidence was shaken over time. I realized I didn't have my own back because I was conditioned throughout my lifetime to believe that a measure of my worth and value was in how much I gave to others. And so it was so amplified in a time where these little beings were relying solely on me to thrive, and realizing that putting them first every single time depleted my own resources, and believing that my worth and value was attached to my caregiving abilities I never had my own back in terms of supporting myself and resourcing myself in those times. And as a result, the desire to give towards others endlessly ended up creating this complete depletion of my own energy to give. So it completely went against the desire that I had to give to others because I had completely burned out without knowing the importance and value of boundaries at that time. Now, through this discovery process, it was at that time that I had learned about what boundaries actually were. It was a new term for me. I learned exactly the definition. I understood by definition why they were important, but then it was a process of understanding how to actually set and maintain those boundaries. And so I will share that process that I learned, as well as some ways that supported me in effectively communicating those boundaries and learning how to have my own back through the process. And it was a multi-year journey of healing, of building back my self-worth through the process of replenishing my energy, of putting myself first, boundary after boundary after boundary. It was an incremental and compounding process that didn't happen overnight. It required devotion and commitment to self-discovery, and it required self-compassion. It required consistency and determination to learn from any sorts of mistakes and failure along the way. But through this journey, I learned how to resource myself with tools that supported my sensitivity and empathic nature. And many of these tools were in the form of a boundary. And through setting boundaries, I began to build up that loving confidence. It was a place of self-trust, of knowing that setting these boundaries demonstrated that I had my own back. And through this process, by setting boundaries, by creating more space for myself, to fuel myself, to protect my energy, I ended up having more time and energy for those who I loved, to do the things that I loved. And so this is just an example of the journey of committing, of learning, of implementing a boundary setting process, what is possible through this journey. And I hope in sharing my own process today, that you take with you what resonates and you begin to integrate it into your own life and believe that this is possible for you too. So let's start with a definition of what a boundary actually is. So the way I see it is a boundary is a type of guideline or limit that you can establish for yourself and with others that helps to define your personal space, define your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors, or your interactions with others. It's a way to protect your well-being, a way to uphold your values and support your energy by setting clear parameters around what is acceptable and what's not acceptable in different areas of your life. Boundaries help to maintain healthy relationships by ensuring that you feel safe and respected by not only yourself, but with others within your interactions, within your environments. And you can kind of see here the fence that's put up. These are clear parameters, they're barriers, they're limits to all of the different aspects of your energy, whether it's through thoughts, emotions, or actions. But why are boundaries so important for sensitive souls like us? It's because they act as your safeguard. They are important because they give you the tools to manage those emotional waves around you. When you set boundaries, you're creating that shield against feeling overwhelmed by others' emotions. I know as an empath, I can often feel like an emotional sponge. When I'm unconscious, I can just naturally absorb others' emotions and feelings and moods. So boundaries can help you build a safe space where you're able to navigate your own feelings without getting swamped by everyone else's around you. They help to maintain that strong sense of self amidst emotions. So help to manage any intense emotions you feel, whether it's your own, because it creates that space for you to process your feelings, but it can also help you to separate your feelings from those of others. So help to reduce the feeling of emotional overwhelm by being able to protect yourself from being that unconscious emotional sponge and to create those barriers in order to protect your energy. And the great news about this is I've come to learn that in setting boundaries, you're actually paving the way for healthier connections. So it's about establishing guidelines for the interactions with others that honor both your feelings and others' feelings. So it fosters that mutual respect and understanding. So it's not just an act of self-care. It is a necessity, especially to navigate a world where, for sensitive souls like us, emotions are vivid and powerful. And so it's about finding that delicate balance between being compassionate, that desire to be so compassionate and care for others, while protecting your own emotional landscape. So think about boundaries as your anchor. They ground you, they give you the stability and the strength to navigate your sensitivity and emotions more confidently. So, in essence, setting boundaries is vital because it empowers you to maintain emotional balance. So, you can regulate the emotions you take in, you prevent that overwhelming feeling or emotional drain, prevents that overwhelm because it creates a safe zone where you can nurture your emotions without feeling bombarded by others' feelings. And you build better relationships. Like I mentioned, boundaries allow you to connect with your empathy while safeguarding your well-being, which fosters healthier and more balanced connections. So, they are your way of navigating your empathy, your sensitivity, while ensuring your own emotional balance and mental health. Now, let's talk about the different kinds of boundaries out there. I see a differentiation between internal boundaries and external boundaries. And as a sensitive soul, understanding the distinctions between these two is crucial. So internal boundaries are the guidelines that you set within yourself, how you manage your emotions, your thoughts, your self-care practices. They're the parameters that you establish to safeguard your mental and emotional space. So they're within your control. They are almost a contract with yourself that help you create that sense of balance and well-being. Now, for external boundaries, these revolve around your interactions with the world. They can delineate the rules you set in your relationships, your communication style, your physical boundaries. They are a framework for how you expect to be treated and how you engage with others. But why are both of these types of boundaries so vital? Well, your internal boundaries act as a form of self-preservation. So you can regulate emotions, maintain that internal balance and harmony. So they truly form the foundation of self-nourishment or self-care. External boundaries contribute to creating a safe environment in your interactions with others and with the world. They can ensure that your needs and emotions are respected by others, kind of much like how you respect those of other people. It's that mutual balanced approach to nurturing relationships while safeguarding your own well-being. So it's about striking a balance between the two. You can harmonize through self-care, harmonize your connections with yourself and with others. And so finding that equilibrium between personal well-being by establishing those internal boundaries and um, harmony within the dynamics of your interactions and relationships. And you can see that there are different types of themes to consider. It just gives you an idea of the breadth of boundaries that you can consider implementing in your life, and maybe might bring about some awareness of boundaries that you never actually, it never occurred to you that there was opportunity to set in some of these areas. We'll cover some of the examples a little bit later on, but this gives you an idea of like how to begin to consider what are all the different areas in my life that I may want to consider setting boundaries in. So the boundary setting process that I use has 4 simple steps. They're kind of like building blocks. So it starts off with identifying areas that you may wish to consider establishing boundaries. It involves defining what that boundary looks and feels like to you. It can involve communicating those boundaries, particularly with those external boundaries, or it's setting that internal contract with yourself or any internal boundaries that you identify. And then there's an element of continuously reviewing and adjusting as you go about, because it may, in theory, seem like a good idea, but in practice, it's not necessarily clicking. So you may need to learn and adjust as you go. Now, these steps are here to help you understand yourself better and let others know how they can treat you in a way that feels good. It's all about making sure your emotional space is respected and feels comfortable. Okay, so let's walk through these steps together. Okay. So, step 1, identify. The first step is where you get to take a closer look at yourself and cultivate that self-awareness. It involves an element of introspection. And I don't know about you, but as a sensitive soul, I have such a rich inner landscape. And I absolutely love self-reflection. I love turning within, understanding myself better. And so this feels like a very luxurious step because I get to really get to know myself better. This step in identifying allows you to recognize and acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge your needs and your limits. It clarifies what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel respected and feel good in your interactions. And this is unique to every single individual. What might make me feel secure and respected and comfortable may look very different to what you feel, what you need to feel secure and respected. So really, there is no wrong answer here. It's only the one that that resonates with you. So no need to compare. This is a very unique and individual experience. So in terms of the internal boundary world, this is about understanding your emotional responses. So you might notice certain words or actions or thoughts trigger discomfort, or on the flip side, trigger joy. It's all about recognizing how these emotional cues, how your inner world guides your reactions and interactions. So some examples here would be noticing some beliefs or thoughts, like your inner narrative that signals discomfort to you. Like perhaps you feel overwhelmed by negative self-talk, and perhaps the self-talk is so subtle, and yet you're feeling, it's all about tuning into the feeling. If something feels off, it's an invitation to get curious around what about it feels off to me. Or maybe it's being aware of physical sensations like tension, discomfort, really getting in tune with your body. Maybe when someone stands too close, you feel like an invasion of the personal bubble, or you feel drained after spending time with group or in a crowded place. Really notice the shifts in your body and in your energy. Or maybe it's about time. So feeling stressed or overwhelmed when your time feels encroached upon, whether you're taking on excessive demands from others, or maybe you're unable to say no. So some examples to get curious about, and I have a few self-reflection questions in the next image. But before we go there, there's also an element of external boundaries. So this is about examining your interactions with others. What behaviors or treatment you appreciate or maybe find uncomfortable. So it's recognizing the space where you feel respected, where you feel safe and comfortable at ease. So maybe an example here would be, you notice discomfort in your body when someone interrupts you constantly, or maybe it feels like your opinions are dismissed and you feel as though they're not listening to you. So recognizing discomfort, also where when others pressure you to act against your values or beliefs, noticing when your values are getting compromised. So understanding in the interactions with others, where are those limits? Where are the examples of when a boundary that has been undefined but subconscious, when it has been crossed? So this step helps to shine a light on your inner world and your preferences. It is the initial step. I always find in any work that I do with my clients, the first step is in self-awareness, because once you can see it, you cannot unsee it. It is the first step in understanding how your mind and body work, and what are your needs and sensitivities, and the kind of expectations you have of others. And so I invite you to take a look at these self-reflection questions and respond to them in your own time, to get curious around different areas where boundaries may be needed. So the first question is, what situations or interactions tend to drain my energy or leave me feeling emotionally exhausted? What recurring thoughts or behaviors indicate when I've crossed my own emotional or mental limits? Where do I feel most comfortable or uncomfortable in my daily routines or interactions with others? When do I feel most fulfilled, respected, and at ease in my relationships or interactions. So feel free to pause the recording here and journal now, or capture these questions and do it later on your own time. But you'll see that it's a blend of internal and external boundary exploration. And I invite you to go back to the different themes of internal and external boundaries to help create any thoughts or ideas of where you may want to take this, or what other examples or experiences that may come through for you based on those themes. Okay. So it's about identifying and creating self-awareness first. And then in step 2, defining your boundaries. This involves establishing, like actually articulating what those boundaries are. So this is about creating a blueprint that, again, acts as that safeguard to your well-being while remaining aligned to your inner compass, is what I define as your core values, the elements that make up authentic you, and your intuition as well, your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. Now, in terms of this step, so you identify specific actions or behaviors from others that either make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. So maybe it's around communication or personal space, ethical treatment, or types of actions that are disrespectful or manipulative or invasive, or anything that is deemed unacceptable to you. So begin to create those lists or those examples to begin to articulate what about these do you deem as acceptable or unacceptable? And again, these are unique to you and your unique needs, your preferences, your values, your unique inner compass. Now, like you saw in the image of the boundaries definition of the fence, this is like setting up fences around your emotional and mental space. You can establish those clear limits that shield your energy and protect your well-being. So this may include setting limits on how much emotional effort you're willing to invest in yourself and others in certain situations. Maybe it's setting clear expectations of how you interact or what you expect from others. Maybe it's defining how involved you're willing to be in certain situations. These types of limits can look different from person to person. And like I mentioned, boundaries are not arbitrary. They are deeply rooted in what you value and what you believe in. So, for example, maybe honesty is a core value for you. So it may be helpful to start with boundaries around truthfulness in relationships to align to your inner compass, or also taking into account your intuition, your inner knowing. We as sensitive souls are so attuned to our environment, to our inner wisdom, even if we're not necessarily conscious that it's there. It is always guiding us, whether unconscious or consciously. And so maybe there is a certain signal from your intuition that signals discomfort in a particular scenario. It's about tuning into these cues, trusting your inner compass to help you define boundaries that honor your authentic self. Okay. And in terms of examples, these can be this simple in terms of emotional boundaries. And these are kind of the way I have positioned them is almost like an affirmation, a declaration to myself. So these are internal boundaries, defining those limits for myself and declaring this is what I stand for. So in terms of the emotional theme, others' feelings and experiences are not my responsibility. That was a big one for me, and learning and separating myself from taking responsibility of how others reacted in certain situations. Another example of an emotional boundary could be declaring that my happiness is not dependent on others, that I am declaring, I define how I experience happiness, and what I get to choose happiness no matter the external circumstances. Some work-life boundaries can be to declare that I no longer work past 5 o'clock, for example, is setting those limits for ourselves and honoring them as well. You heard back in 2020, I did not have my own back. I did not have any boundaries in place. And so when I went back to work that year after maternity leave, I was working into the evenings, which just amplified my burnout even further because I had no time or energy to pour back into myself. So these kinds of visible limits can be so important in identifying and determining when it is time to shut down for the day. Another example is I am a recovering people pleaser. I used to jump at every opportunity to serve, to give value. That also backfired when I took on too much. And so a boundary that could have helped me in that situation was setting that internal boundary, but then communicating it to others, which we'll talk about that as step 3, that I am choosing not to take on extra assignments, feeling like there's an obligation to do so, and honoring my energy, protecting my energy. Now, an example around mental boundaries. This can be a big one when we are so in tune with our inner worlds, and it can often lead to overthinking and overanalysis. I know so many times where I feel like I analyze a past conversation or a presentation or something where I had to put myself out there, and then I would replay the conversations and break it down and pinpoint where I had gone wrong, and then stew and spin on those mistakes. Just as an example, I mean, any mistakes you make, there's always potential for overanalyzing. So setting up that mental boundary, that creating that awareness of how stewing over your mistakes can drain your energy, and then declaring to yourself, I'm no longer doing this. So identifying areas where your energy is drained through step 1, and deciding, oh, this is actually no longer serving me, and I'm setting an internal boundary for this. Another big piece, I delegate tasks where I know I need support. Back in 2020 for me, I didn't know how to ask for help. I thought I had to take it on. I thought that I had to carry the load on my shoulders. I burned out as a result, and it wasn't until I gathered the courage to ask for help that I realized how important that was, and that there was no shame in asking for help. And it can come in the form of delegating tasks where you know it is not serving yourself or others by taking it all on yourself. And so a mental boundary in that sense can be deciding how and when to delegate tasks. A physical boundary example, this is more internal, so a contract with yourself, is tuning into your body and the signals, different signals. In this case, I mean, it's eating, so mindful eating. So knowing when it's full, knowing when it's hungry, responding to it. So setting those boundaries around what is the limit for conscious nourishment. Even boundaries around how much time you spend. If you have a desk job, it's like how much time are you sitting at your desk and giving yourself permission to stand and stretch after that time, that focused time, and honoring those boundaries and those limits for yourself. So I hope these examples help. I'm so curious where else you identify and define your boundaries. Okay, so here are, in terms of step 3, this is all about, mainly about communicating to others. So you've defined your boundaries. So just take one to begin with. If it's an external boundary, take one. And use that as an example for yourself as you walk through these top 3 things to consider when communicating boundaries in an effective way. The first thing to consider is to be clear and direct. So avoid ambiguity. Express your boundary in straightforward language without leaving room for interpretation. So perhaps instead of saying, I don't really like it when plans change last minute, it's not helpful to others. Like, okay, what does last minute mean to you? What does, I don't really like it? Like I don't know what to do with that other than, well, I guess I'll try to interpret what that means and do better next time, but it still might not be better in the other person's point of view because their definition of what last minute is different from yours. So a clear and direct statement, on the other hand, here would be, I prefer having plans confirmed 24 hours in advance so that I can make necessary arrangements. So not only does it specify, what last minute is, what I would prefer, but it also helps that the other person to understand the why, because I can then make necessary arrangements. So it's expressing your preferences in a very clear and direct way. Now, the second thing to consider is focusing on your feelings and needs. So use I statements to express how certain behaviors or situations make you feel and what you need from them. So example here, the non-I statement. Telling someone you're always interrupting me during conversations. That can really create defensiveness in the other person. Whereas try positioning it from your point of view and how you feel. So I feel unheard when I get interrupted while speaking. So this is not necessarily blaming them, saying you're always interrupting me. And they feel, they may feel may get defensive by that statement. Instead, you're positioning it from your point of view, helping them understand how you feel. Because really that boundary right here and now is about you and creating clarity with the other person. And then the third consideration is how to infuse firmness and respect by avoiding blaming or attacking language, which can be hard to pinpoint and can be difficult to do, particularly when your nervous system is dysregulated. Like you feel activated in your body, you're feeling anxious or angry, and responding from a place of like emotional reaction. That is human nature, to self-preserve and to put it on the other person. But here's the invitation to pause, give yourself space, a moment, a breath, and rather than responding from reaction, is responding from a place of intention. So an example here, perhaps you said in a moment of emotional reaction, blaming, you're always so selfish, you never consider my feelings. You're blaming the other person, putting it on them without acknowledging how it makes you feel. So kind of incorporating the I statement Using firm yet respectful language, again, starting with the I feel unheard when my opinions are consistently overlooked in decision making. So again, it's trying to share your perception, create awareness around how it makes you feel without blaming or attacking the other person. And this can be the hardest step in the process. Like telling others about our boundaries can feel really, really tough. That can feel, it can feel scary in our body. It can activate our nervous system. I know my heart pounds, I get sweaty. I feel like my voice can kind of shake. So I can feel myself getting anxious in those situations. And why does this happen? I got really curious about that. It's because we might not feel safe inside of ourselves when we consider speaking up. Our body and our mind might think it's better to stay quiet or make sure others don't get upset because that feels safer. So, of course, that's why this is the hardest step. Imagine you're talking to someone and suddenly you feel worried that they might not like what you're saying. Your body might feel tense, might feel it in your shoulders. You might feel your heart rate increasing. You might feel your hands getting clammy. That's because deep down, you're not feeling safe about speaking up. But here's the good part. And here is a special consideration for today as part of the experience. When we work on feeling safe inside of ourselves first, it's creating that foundation for more calm and strength and ease in these otherwise contentious situations. So when we want to then tell someone about our boundaries, it doesn't feel as physically scary anymore. We feel more confident because we've created that inner safety, that calm, that ease inside of ourselves first. That's the empathic shield. That makes us feel more sure and less worried about what might happen because we've created that foundation of safety. So when we're confident and safe inside, it's easier to talk about our boundaries without feeling all jittery, scared, and activated. It helps us speak up with the assertiveness, with that firmness, with that intention instead of reaction. So at the end of this masterclass, I'll lead you through a guided meditation on creating inner safety. This is something that I encourage you to return to build that awareness of what safety feels like in your body, to support yourself in cultivating that inner safety and bringing it into your interactions. Because this way, you'll reduce your vulnerability, that emotional sway, that instinct to shut down during boundary discussions or to give in. And it helps to build that emotional regulation within yourself, that nervous system regulation. It helps to build resilience to any reactions that might occur in your environment, to no longer take responsibility for those reactions, to no longer let it impact you in such a profound way. So I encourage you to stay to the end. I will be sharing this simple meditation to help to begin to create that inner safety within you. Before we go there, periodically reflecting on our boundaries is helpful to understand how well they're working in various situations. So it helps you consider, do they still align with your current needs and circumstances? It's a flexible framework And it shifts over time because you grow, circumstances change, relationships evolve. So it needs occasional adjustments. That's natural. So we need to adapt our boundaries to ensure that they remain supportive and relevant to your context, to your particular season of life. And I want to emphasize that adjusting boundaries is not an indication of failure. I encourage you to view it as a testament to your growth and self-awareness. It's a normal part of the process. And so reviewing and adjusting involves conscious reflection, kind of like the very first step. It encourages you to identify areas where your boundaries might need fine-tuning. And then you get to decide what kinds of modifications are required based on your evolving needs or changing relationships. So it's a continuous opportunity. It can be very organic. And this is to ensure that your boundaries continue to serve their intended purpose, which is to safeguard your energy and well-being and to help you foster healthy interactions. So this particular step can be a proactive measure to ensure that your boundaries remain conducive to your growth and your evolving needs, your inner compass, and any shifting dynamics in your relationships. And so I invite you to, again, pause on these self-reflection questions. What kinds of situations may have challenged my boundaries? And what might I want to do differently next time? It's a very simple evaluation question. Understanding what were the areas that kind of triggered or pushed any boundary that maybe had crossed a boundary, or it was anything that felt like there was a weakness in the foundation, to help you identify those gaps and fill those gaps with doing something different, experimenting with something different next time. Then you consider coming back to the inner compass. What values or priorities or preferences, anything about your inner compass, what aspects are reflected in my current boundaries, and do they need updating? So like I said, you evolve over time, you grow over time. So based on how you've grown, are there any updates that need to be made related to your core values or your preferences or ways that you feel like support you in expressing your authentic self? Think about the question, when do I find it hard to stick to my boundaries and why? So understanding certain scenarios that maybe there's a pattern that happens over and over and over again. And you've never given yourself permission to pause and ask why. This is the opportunity to get curious around why this seems to be happening over and over and over again. And then where do I feel the need to adjust my boundaries for better alignment with my needs or values? So maybe you've identified areas where boundaries, the first go at it, it's almost like iterating over time. So you start with the first cut, you test it. So you implement it, you collect some observations or data, and then it gives you information that helps you to determine if you need to adjust. And if so, what does that look like for you? Okay. All right. I am going to lead you through the inner safety meditation now. So I invite you, if you need to pause the recording to find a comfortable space, do that now. If you are already in a comfortable space, I invite you to sit or lie down, close your eyes if it feels safe to do so right now. and allow your body to relax. Take a few deep breaths in through your nose to a count of 4, and out through your mouth with an audible sigh, centering yourself in the present moment and signaling to your nervous system that it is safe to relax. Continue to inhale deeply through your nose, feeling the breath fill your lungs. Hold at the top for a moment, and then exhale slowly and audibly through your mouth, continuing to release any tension. Continue the inhale through your nose and gentle exhale through your mouth, identifying any more areas in your body that may be holding on to stress. Continue to notice what's going on in your body, where those areas of tension or discomfort are housed. Paying attention to how your body is feeling in this moment. I invite you now to envision a soft, gentle light surrounding you, creating a shield of safety and comfort. You visualize this protective shield taking form around you. It's made of a shimmering, resilient energy, and it wraps around you like a cocoon. You are held. Feel its comforting embrace. Focus on the sensation of safety within your body. Allow this shield to amplify the feeling of being held and secure. With every breath in, imagine the soft light, the shield growing stronger. Notice in your body where you feel the sense of safety most profoundly. Tune in to all sensations as the resilient energy of this protective shield holds you. I invite you to set an intention for this empathic shield. It's here to protect and nurture you. This is an opportunity to affirm to yourself that you are creating a safe space within, shielding yourself from overwhelming emotions and energies that bring stress or tension. Allow the stress and tension to simply melt away as the shield protects you. Imagine as though you're being gently held and supported by an invisible, loving force within this shield. It's a warm, nurturing presence that helps you feel safe and cared for. With each breath, imagine drawing in safety and comfort from this empathic shield. Feel it infusing your body, calming your nerves, and anchoring you in a state of ease, of peace. Sit with this safety and comfort. With each breath in, amplify this feeling in your body. Allow it to expand with each in-breath. And with each exhale, release any lingering stress or tension. Continue to amplify this warm cocoon where you are held and you are safe. Allow yourself to bask in this shimmering energy, infusing it into all of your cells in your body, feeling it expand with each in-breath and releasing any lingering tension with each out-breath. Each breath strengthens the empathic shield, offering you this place of refuge that you can return to whenever needed. I invite you to take a moment to express gratitude for this sense of safety and protection that you've created within yourself. Hold yourself with love and appreciation for taking this time to tune into inner safety. When you're ready, slowly bring your awareness back to your room, your surroundings. Bring some gentle movement into your fingers and toes. Take a few more deep breaths, and when you're ready, only when you're ready, gently open your eyes. So as you come back into the room, I offer you self-reflection questions to tune into your experience of creating inner safety. Starting with the simple reflection of tuning into feeling, the felt sense. How did it make you feel? And with that feeling, with the experience, did you experience any new insights? Maybe developed deepened understanding about your boundaries or your needs or your sensitivity and how you relate to it in your body. And then getting curious about the physical sensation itself. I invite you to pinpoint where exactly in your body did you feel the sensation of safety or of comfort or of that sense of protection. Where did that felt sense manifest in your body? What did it feel like too? Were there tingles? Was there glowing? Really describe the sensation that you felt. Maybe there were colors that came through. Maybe there was a sound that you heard or that you picked up on. Whatever it was, really begin to describe what that feeling of inner safety was for you. And then begin to consider how you can integrate this feeling into your everyday, how it's possible to revisit this feeling that you created in these few minutes together through the meditation, to give yourself moments of time to tune into this inner safety and put up your empathic shield when you notice your need, or even in being proactive and doing it ahead of any sense of nervous system dysregulation, whether it's in the moment or out of the moment. How can you integrate this feeling into your daily life? Okay. So remember, practicing boundaries is not a one-time thing. It's a journey that unfolds with time. I am still practicing setting boundaries. Yes, I have learned the art of setting boundaries, and I have learned how to thrive within an effective boundary setting process, but I am still growing. My relationships are still evolving. And so I am naturally adjusting my boundaries with time. This is completely normal. And it's okay if it feels like a work in progress, because it truly is. Embracing this journey with self-compassion and grace is key. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be neat and tidy. Allow it to be messy. Allow that to be normal. So I invite you to complete the self-reflection questions that I provided in this masterclass if you haven't yet done so. And then start with one internal boundary, because this is the place where you can practice without needing to necessarily create safety in your body to communicate to others. Practice that art of setting boundaries with yourself. And then as you begin to build this inner safety and begin to practice communicating to others with clarity and assertiveness and compassion, I invite you to try one external boundary as well. So start small. Again, this is a work in progress and this is a journey, and it will compound over time. But start with what's available to you today so that it doesn't become overwhelming. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to establish every single boundary tomorrow. This is an iterative process, and I always encourage my clients with anything, whether it's creating habits or making changes, is to do micro shifts, what I like to call as micro shifts. There's tiny steps. And a tiny step in this process is to choose one boundary and practice the process. And then as you go about practicing this and learning from your implementation and how it unfolds, listen to this inner safety meditation for the next 3 weeks. Begin to really tune into that inner safety and amplify that felt sense in your body to create that empathic shield for the conversations that you are going to have as you set more external boundaries. Be patient with yourself. Learning this skill takes time. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it may seem. So, yes, I'm encouraging you to start small and to acknowledge your progress, even if it is tiny tweaks at a time, because this compounds. The results compound over time. And related to that, consistency matters. So, follow the iterative process, the continuous review and adjustment, and continue to revisit your boundaries, to evaluate them, to adjust them when you need to. The more you practice, the easier this becomes. And stay open to learning more about yourself. Stay curious. Lead yourself through this with curiosity rather than judgment, because this can help you in exploring and understanding how your boundaries may change, that is normal as you grow and evolve. And like I said, the inner safety meditation, this is your secret tool for your journey. This can be your anchor, reminding you how safety feels from within. So every time you listen to it, it helps to reinforce that sense of security, supporting you as you practice the communication piece of the boundary setting process. And remember, this journey is yours. It's about creating a space where you feel safe, where you feel respected, where you are at peace. You cannot get this wrong when you trust and honor your own experience. So step by step, infusing self-kindness, leaning on the guidance of inner safety. Trust that you are on your way to nurturing healthy relationships and experiencing a more fulfilling life as a result. I so appreciate you. And if you have any ahas, any experiences that you would like to share related to this masterclass, I invite you to send me an email, respond to the masterclass email that I sent. I read all of my emails, and I love hearing from you and hearing how these concepts relate to your life experience and how you are integrating these learnings in your own life and how you are growing as a result and feeling held and supported in this journey.